the unlikely hero. Jordan was not like the others. The other cadets in the military training program were all born into power, trained from birth to be warriors, and destined for greatness. But Jordan, he was different. He came from a small, quiet colony on Earth, a place where dreams of intergalactic wars and legendary creatures were nothing but stories. He wasn't the strongest cadet. He wasn't the fastest. And he certainly didn't have the special enhancements that some of the others had. Yet Jordan had something none of them did, an unbreakable will. He was known for his heart, his courage, and his willingness to never back down, no matter the odds. In the midst of grueling training, when everyone else would give up, Jordan pushed forward. He didn't win all the battles, but he learned from every mistake, grew stronger with every failure. The senior cadets would laugh at him sometimes. "He's not going to make it," they'd say, but Jordan didn't care. He was here to prove them wrong. One evening, as the training day came to an end, the cadets gathered in the central hall. The atmosphere felt different tonight, heavy with anticipation. The doors opened, and the military leaders walked in, high-ranking officers from various planets, their faces cold and stern. These were the people who controlled everything. They had the power to make or break careers, to send people to their deaths or offer them fame beyond belief. "Cadet Jordan," the commander called out, his voice booming across the room. Jordan's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't been called before like this. The commander stepped forward, his eyes piercing Jordan's soul. "You have been chosen," the commander said, his words slicing through the tension. "The time has come for you to prove your worth. The galaxy is watching. Your mission is simple: survive. We've sent 3 apex predators to test you. They are creatures unlike any you've seen. It will be a battle of life and death." The room fell silent. The words hit Jordan like a punch to the gut. Apex predators? He'd heard the stories. Creatures so powerful, so deadly, that they were considered the top of the food chain across the galaxy. The thought of facing one was terrifying, let alone 3. The commander paused, letting the weight of his words settle. These creatures have faced hundreds of the galaxy's best warriors, and none of them made it past the first strike. But we believe you have something special, something no one else has. We'll see if that's true. Jordan's mind raced. He wasn't prepared for this. He had trained for tough fights, but this was a whole different level. His body froze, but his mind didn't. There was no turning back now. The other cadets looked at him, some with pity, some with curiosity, but Jordan only had one thought in his mind. He wasn't going to let fear take control. "I'll survive," he whispered to himself, more as a promise than a statement. The words weren't just for the commanders or the other cadets, they were for himself. He had no idea how he was going to survive, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to go down without a fight. The military leaders gave a final nod and left the room, leaving Jordan alone with his thoughts. The hall suddenly felt much colder, the air thick with the weight of the challenge ahead. He looked around at the other cadets, some of whom still seemed skeptical. Jordan wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. But he was going to prove that human willpower could beat anything, and he would start by taking down the first apex predator. "Oh, Minnie," you said. Part 2. The First Predator. A Monster of the Skies. The air crackled with tension as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the training grounds. Jordan stood alone, his heart pounding in his chest. His mind was still reeling from the announcement earlier that day. He was about to face the first of the 3 apex predators, each one more terrifying than the last. And yet, here he was, standing in the middle of a cold, open field ready to face the unknown. His hands gripped the weapon tightly, a standard-issue plasma rifle. It felt too light in his grasp, as if it couldn't possibly be enough to face what was coming. His breath came in shallow gasps, but he forced himself to steady his nerves. He wasn't about to let fear control him. Not now, not ever. Then it happened. The first sign of the predator came not in the form of sound but a shadow. A deep, almost unnatural shadow that seemed to darken the sky. Jordan's eyes shot up, and his stomach dropped. A massive shape was cutting through the clouds, faster than anything human made. It was a sky rake, a monstrous winged creature, legendary for its power and speed. Its wings spanned nearly 40 feet, and its talons could tear apart metal with ease. This wasn't just an ordinary predator. It was a force of nature. The beast's cry echoed across the field, a sound that sent a shiver down Jordan's spine. The skyrake's body was sleek, with scales that shimmered like molten silver under the light of the setting sun. Its eyes locked onto Jordan, piercing and cold. The predator was studying him, calculating its attack. It knew this was not just another prey. It could sense the tension, the uncertainty, the fear in Jordan. And it was about to feast. Jordan's mind raced. The creature was fast, too fast to be caught off guard. He couldn't let it dive in for the kill. He needed to make the first move, and fast. His hands shook as he raised the rifle, but he didn't fire. Instead, he scanned the area, searching for any advantage. The ground beneath him was littered with debris, old training equipment, rocks, scattered remnants of previous battles. That's when it hit him. He couldn't fight the skyrake on its terms. He needed to turn the tables. With a deep breath, Jordan dropped to one knee and fired a shot into the air. The loud crack of the plasma rifle rang out, a sharp, violent noise that echoed off the walls of the canyon. The skyrake reacted instantly, diving toward him with the speed of a lightning strike. But Jordan was already moving. He rolled to the side just as the beast's massive claws slashed the ground where he had been moments before. The sheer force of the predator's strike sent dust flying in every direction, momentarily blinding him. He took advantage of the confusion. Jordan didn't aim to kill. It was too early for that. But he needed to disorient the creature, create an opening. He used his environment. While the skyrake was recovering from its attack, Jordan sprinted to the side, using the nearby rock outcroppings for cover. The creature followed, its wings flapping with an ear-splitting roar, but Jordan was already ahead of it, moving with purpose. The key to defeating the skyrake wasn't brute force, it was intelligence. Jordan had learned from his training that sometimes survival wasn't about fighting harder, it was about fighting smarter. He wasn't going to win in a direct confrontation, but if he could outmaneuver the creature, he might just have a chance. The skyrake circled high above him, looking for its next strike. Jordan knew its next move. It was going to dive again, faster and more deadly than before. His heart raced, but his mind was clear. He sprinted forward, moving toward the center of the open field where the skyrake would have to dive. As the creature began its descent, Jordan's instincts kicked in. He jumped, rolling to the side at the last second as the skyrake's talons slammed into the earth where he had been moments before. The predator was momentarily stunned, its wings flapping wildly in an attempt to regain control. That was his moment. Jordan grabbed a sharp, jagged rock from the ground, using the momentum to fling it directly at the skyrake's wing joint. The rock struck true, the impact sending a shockwave of force through the creature's body. It shrieked in pain, its wings faltering just enough for Jordan to launch himself forward, slamming his plasma rifle into its side. The beast staggered back, its once confident stance crumbling. For a moment, there was silence. The skyrake, bloodied and injured, stood towering over Jordan, its eyes wide with disbelief. It had never been hurt like this before, and it had certainly never faced someone like him. Jordan's heart was still pounding, but he knew one thing for certain. This fight wasn't over, and as the skyrake recoiled, he prepared for whatever came next, knowing that he had just won the first round of this deadly game. The second predator. The armored beast. The ground trembled beneath Jordan's feet. A low, ominous rumble echoed across the vast expanse of the training field. It wasn't the wind or the sound of distant explosions. This was something else, a living force, something massive and unstoppable. Jordan's heart beat faster as the air seemed to thicken with tension. He had barely caught his breath after the skyrake's defeat, And already the next challenge had arrived. He glanced around, searching for any sign of the new predator, but saw nothing. For a brief moment, it was as if the world had fallen into a strange, eerie silence, the kind of silence that precedes disaster. Then the earth cracked. A monstrous shape burst through the ground, sending dust and debris flying into the air like a violent storm. The armored beast had arrived. This creature was nothing like the skyrake, no wings, no speed. Instead, it was a hulking mass of muscle and nearly impenetrable armor. Its skin was covered in thick, rock-like plates, each one sharp as blades. The beast's eyes were cold and calculating, with a gaze that seemed to burn right through Jordan. Its massive clawed feet stomped on the ground, creating craters with every movement. The armored beast roared, a deep, earth-shattering sound that shook the very foundation of the training ground. The sound vibrated in Jordan's chest as the HFY creature lumbered toward him, each step more terrifying than the last. Jordan's breath caught in his throat. The creature was a tank, and it wasn't just built for strength. It was built to withstand anything. Guns, explosives, anything he could throw at it would likely do nothing. His plasma rifle wouldn't be enough. The realization hit him like a wave. This wasn't a fight of power, it was a fight of strategy. The beast charged. With surprising speed for something so massive, the armored beast closed the distance between them in seconds. Its claws ripped through the air like a set of knives aiming for Jordan's head. The ground beneath him shook as the creature's claws came crashing down, and Jordan barely dodged, rolling to the side just in time. His mind raced. There had to be a weak spot somewhere. But where? Jordan's eyes darted over the beast's body, searching for any vulnerability in its armored plating. Its chest was solid and impenetrable, but as it swung its massive claws around, Jordan noticed something, a slight gap between the creature's shoulder plates. It was small, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but it was there. Without thinking, Jordan acted. He sprinted toward the beast's flank, dodging the next claw swipe by inches. The armored beast growled in frustration. Its eyes locked onto Jordan as it adjusted its position, trying to pin him down. But Jordan wasn't giving up. He knew the gap he'd seen was small, but he could make it work. Reaching for a discarded piece of equipment nearby, he grabbed a jagged metal bar, its edges sharp from years of use in training. It wasn't much, but it was something. With a quick glance at the beast, Jordan darted forward, aiming for the weak spot he had seen earlier. The creature roared again as it brought its massive claws down. This time, Jordan wasn't running. With all his might, he plunged the metal bar into the gap in the creature's armor, aiming for the soft tissue beneath. The beast howled in pain, stumbling back, its claws scraping against the ground in anger. It wasn't enough to defeat the beast, but it was enough to stun it, enough to get its attention. The armored beast staggered, its once unstoppable charge halted by the unexpected attack. It turned, its eyes wide with rage as it snarled, readying itself for a more brutal attack. Jordan knew he didn't have much time. He needed to keep the pressure on, to make sure the creature didn't recover. He grabbed his plasma rifle again, this time aiming at the base of the beast's exposed neck. The plasma shot rang out, striking the creature's vulnerable spot. The beast roared in agony, but it didn't fall. It was wounded, yes, but it wasn't dead. The fight had only just begun. The third predator, the stealth hunter. The sky had darkened completely now, the battlefield cloaked in an unsettling silence. The shadows stretched across the terrain, swallowing up the distant landscape as if nature itself was holding its breath. Jordan stood at the center of the field, his body sore and bruised, but his resolve stronger than ever. He had faced two of the galaxy's deadliest apex predators, and somehow, against all odds, he had survived. But as he surveyed the night, around him he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the calm before the storm. He could feel it in the air, a strange shift, a tingling sensation running down his spine. It was no longer about strength. This next predator was going to test something else entirely. Without warning, the temperature dropped. The night felt colder, the wind picking up just enough to send a chill through his bones. It was then that Jordan heard it. the softest rustling sound like a whisper on the wind. At first, he thought it was just the trees swaying or perhaps the distant echo of animal life in the jungle surrounding the training grounds. But then he realized something. There was no other sound. No birds. No insects. The world was eerily still. And then he saw it. Just for a split second. A flash of movement, quick as a shadow, slipping through the darkness. The stealth hunter had arrived. This predator was not like the others. There were no physical signs of its presence, no roar, or thunderous footsteps. It moved like the night itself, silent, invisible, and utterly terrifying. The stealth hunter was a master of camouflage, a creature capable of blending into its surroundings so completely that it could be anywhere, yet nowhere, all at once. Jordan had heard the stories. In combat, it didn't need speed, brute force, or raw power. It only needed to strike when its prey was most vulnerable. Jordan's instincts screamed at him. He knew better than to stand still. The moment he stopped moving, the stealth hunter would be on him in a heartbeat, and he wouldn't even see it coming. But where was it? Where did it hide? He took a deep breath and activated his helmet's infrared visor, hoping the heat signatures would reveal the predator's location. The screen flickered to life, showing the surrounding terrain in hues of red and blue, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. No heat signatures, no signs of movement. A shiver ran down his spine, and, for the first time, Jordan began to feel something deeper than fear. It was uncertainty. He couldn't fight what he couldn't see. Then it happened. A blur of movement caught his eye, a flicker in the corner of his vision. Before he could react, something sharp and fast sliced through the air. A hiss. The stealth hunter had struck. Jordan twisted away at the last moment, narrowly avoiding a slashing claw that grazed his arm. The sharp sting of the wound sent a surge of adrenaline through him, sharpening his senses. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it now. The presence of the predator, just out of reach, watching and waiting. The creature was playing with him. It didn't need to rush. It knew it had the advantage. The stealth hunter's claws were like surgical blades, slicing through the air with deadly precision. Jordan had only seconds to react, to get inside its game. His mind raced for a solution. Speed, precision. The stealth hunter relied on the element of surprise. If Jordan could strip that away, he might stand a chance. The only way to find the creature was to force it to reveal itself. Jordan quickly scanned the area and found a small cluster of rocks. Without hesitation, he rolled behind them, using their jagged edges to shield himself. The predator's claws would be useless against the rocks, at least for now. But the trick was timing. He couldn't wait too long. If he was lucky, the stealth hunter would make a move. He didn't have to wait long. A sudden sharp noise, a hiss, followed by a gust of wind as something moved with terrifying speed. The creature was circling. Jordan's eyes flicked to the infrared visor, hoping for a sign, any sign of the predator's presence. And then it came. There it was, a faint outline in the infrared screen, barely visible, but just enough for Jordan to lock onto. The stealth hunter was real. In that instant, Jordan didn't hesitate. He leapt from his cover, rolling out into the open field, his rifle aimed directly at the flickering heat signature. The creature darted at him again, but this time Jordan was ready. As it closed in, he fired. The shot wasn't meant to hit, it was meant to disrupt. The plasma blast hit the ground just in front of the stealth hunter, sending a cloud of smoke and debris into the air. The predator flinched, momentarily disoriented by the explosion. Jordan didn't wait. He charged forward, forcing his way through the smoke. His eyes scanned desperately, and then, there, a glint of movement in the haze. He lunged, grabbing a sharp piece of rock from the ground and slashing at the thin air. There was a sound, like the rustle of leaves, and then a strangled roar of pain. The stealth hunter had been struck. For the first time since it appeared, the predator revealed itself. Its body glowing faintly, still partially camouflaged but not fully invisible. Jordan didn't give it time to recover. He pressed forward, using his remaining strength to land blow after blow, targeting its weak spots. The stealth hunter staggered back, blood dripping from its side. It was faltering. But Jordan knew better than to get overconfident. This was only the beginning. The creature was not done yet, and neither was he. The unexpected twist. The battle had been intense, but as the dust from the last strike settled, something changed in the air. The stillness felt different, almost too quiet. Jordan stood there panting, his body covered in bruises and dirt, but his spirit unbroken. The stealth hunter, now wounded and retreating into the shadows, wasn't the only threat in this twisted game. Jordan knew that there was still more to face, but he had made it this far. Against all odds, he had survived the unimaginable. Yet, just as he began to catch his breath, a chilling realization began to creep over him. The ground beneath him wasn't as solid as it seemed. The eerie silence hung in the air like a threat. There was something more, something deeper, something sinister waiting just beyond the surface. Without warning, a voice crackled through his earpiece. It was the commander, cold and impersonal, like a shadow looming over his every move. "Cadet Jordan," the voice boomed. "You've done well to make it this far, but you're not finished yet. The next phase of your trial begins now." Jordan froze, his heart pounding. Next phase? The words echoed in his mind, and the weight of their meaning hit him harder than any physical blow. This wasn't just a test of survival anymore. This was something else. Something bigger than the predators. Something even more dangerous. The ground beneath him trembled again. But this time, it wasn't the arrival of another monster. This time, it felt different. It was as if the earth itself was reacting, shifting beneath his feet, alive with unseen forces. The sky above, once dark and suffocating, now flickered with strange, unnatural lights. For a moment, Jordan thought he saw something move in the distance, an odd shimmer that didn't belong in the night sky. Then a massive metallic door rose from the ground, emerging from the very earth like a giant mechanical beast. It gleamed in the pale light, smooth and imposing. But what truly caught Jordan's attention were the words etched on the side of it: "Humanity's true test, Phase 2. Jordan's pulse quickened as the door slid open with a deep mechanical groan, revealing something far more terrifying than any predator he had faced. Inside there were no weapons, no creatures. Just a dark, empty room. Too quiet, too still. A room that seemed to stretch on forever. His training had never prepared him for this. "Inside," the commander's voice said again, this time with a slight edge of cold amusement. "The real challenge awaits." Jordan hesitated for a moment. His mind raced with questions. What was this? What was really happening here? He had thought the apex predators were the ultimate test, but this was different. It wasn't about fighting monsters anymore. This was about something far more dangerous, the unknown, the unpredictable, and worst of all, the real reason he had been chosen. His instincts screamed at him to run, to leave this madness behind. But that was never an option. He was here for a reason. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the darkness. As he moved deeper into the room, the door slammed shut behind him with a deafening thud. He was trapped. No turning back. Suddenly, the room lit up with blinding white light, followed by a loud mechanical hum. The walls shifted, slowly at first, then faster, transforming into a maze of moving walls and shifting obstacles. The lights flickered again, and Jordan heard a faint whisper, a voice, distorted and distant. "You have made it this far, but are you truly worthy?" the voice asked, almost mocking. Survival was never the true test. You were only being watched, observed, and now you will see the truth. The lights flickered once more, and a holographic projection appeared before him. It was the face of the commander, but something was different this time. His eyes, once cold and detached, now held a glint of something darker, something sinister. The apex predators you faced? They weren't just creatures. They were part of a much larger plan. You were not only being tested for your strength, your skill, or your tactics. You were being measured for something else entirely. You, Cadet Jordan, were chosen to prove something more than just survival. The commander's voice was laced with a chilling calm. The humans have always been underestimated. You were meant to show us why humanity is feared. Jordan's mind spun as the truth began to sink in. This was no longer a test of survival. It was a test of humanity's worth. But by who? Why? And what did they expect him to prove? The walls continued to shift, the ground vibrating beneath him. As the room morphed into something that felt more like a trap than a trial, he wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. He was fighting for the future of humanity itself. The truth behind the mission. The walls around Jordan shifted one final time, locking him into a cold, metallic chamber. It was as if the room itself was alive, responding to his every movement, closing in on him with an unnerving precision. The lights overhead flickered in time with his heartbeat, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. The hum of machinery filled the air, a constant reminder that he wasn't alone. Jordan's mind raced. He had faced terrifying predators, overcome the odds, and survived what no one thought possible. But what was the point of it all? Why had they chosen him? Why had they put him through this twisted game? The commander's cryptic words echoed in his mind, but they didn't answer anything. They only deepened the mystery. Suddenly, the room's lights went out completely, plunging him into darkness. His breath hitched as the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. He wasn't alone. Someone was coming. A soft whirring sound followed, and before he could react, a hologram flickered to life in front of him. It was the commander, but this time, he wasn't just speaking to Jordan. He was speaking to the room, to something far bigger. The truth was about to be revealed. "We've been watching you, Cadet," the commander said, his voice calm but cold. "And you've done more than simply survive. You've proven that humanity has something we've long ignored, something we've feared. It's time to show you why you're here." The walls around Jordan hummed, and an image began to form, a display of lights and shapes that seemed to shift and distort before his eyes. Slowly, the image became clearer. It was a map, an intricate, detailed map of galaxies far beyond his comprehension. At the center of it all was Earth, but not the Earth he knew. This Earth was different, its borders marked with strange symbols and lines that seemed to pulse with energy. Humanity's true potential has always been hidden, the commander continued, his voice growing colder with every word. "You've always believed you were weak, but that's the lie we've fed you, a lie that has kept you under control. You were never meant to know the truth, not until you proved you had the strength to face it." Jordan's eyes widened as he took in the sight. This map, this was no ordinary galaxy chart. It showed connections, webs of influence and power structures that spanned hundreds of systems. But Earth was at the center. Not a backwater planet, not a forgotten colony. Earth was the key. There is a force greater than any predator, any army, or any technology in this galaxy, the commander said, his voice now laced with a sinister edge. "It's not physical power. It's the power of humanity's will, its ability to adapt, to fight, and to survive against all odds. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you valuable." The room trembled, and the map flickered again, zooming in on a hidden corner of the galaxy. The symbols on the screen twisted and turned, revealing a symbol Jordan recognized. A symbol from his training, one that had always seemed unimportant. It was the same symbol the commander had used on the metallic door, the one that led him into this twisted trial. "This is the true test," the commander's voice echoed, now dark and foreboding. "Not just of your ability to fight, but of your loyalty. You were chosen to prove humanity's worth because Earth holds the key to an ancient power, one that has the potential to change the fate of the entire galaxy. The apex predators were never the real challenge. You were never meant to defeat them. You were meant to show us that humanity is capable of wielding this power, of controlling it." Jordan stood still, his mind reeling. This was no longer about proving his strength. It wasn't about survival. He had been a pawn in a much larger game, and the entire galaxy was watching him. The apex predators had been sent to break him, to force him into submission, to prove that humanity wasn't ready for what lay ahead. But he wasn't broken. He wasn't going to be controlled. A sudden realization hit him like a thunderbolt. This wasn't just a test. This was manipulation. The commander had never cared about his strength. He didn't care about proving humanity's worth in battle. What mattered was Jordan's response to pressure, his ability to fight back even when the odds were stacked against him. It was a test of character, of the human spirit, and Jordan had passed. But now the stakes were higher than ever. Humanity was being controlled from the shadows, and Jordan was the key to either stopping or enabling it. Now, the choice is yours. The commander's voice echoed through the chamber, growing distant. Join us, and humanity will finally rise to its rightful place in the galaxy. Or reject us, and you will become an enemy of the very forces you were trained to trust. The map flickered one last time, and in the center of it, Earth burned, bright, a glowing beacon of untapped power. Jordan was faced with an impossible decision. The future of humanity was in his hands, and the commander's words were a final warning. There would be no turning back. The question was clear. Which side would he choose? The final showdown. The air in the chamber felt thick, charged with an energy Jordan couldn't quite place. It was as if the very walls were watching him, waiting for the next move. The map of the galaxy, with Earth at its heart, continued to flicker ominously. His mind buzzed with the weight of the decision laid before him. Join them and humanity would rise, potentially under the control of the shadowy forces that had orchestrated everything. Reject them and risk becoming the galaxy's greatest enemy. Jordan knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about the future of humanity, the very essence of what it meant to be human. This was no longer a test of physical strength or even of tactics. It was a test of ideals. But before he could make any decision, the room around him began to tremble. The lights flickered and dimmed, and the walls, those same walls that had once felt like a trap, shifted again. This time they didn't just change in appearance. They began to reveal something deeper, something far more terrifying than anything he had faced before. The doors at the far end of the chamber slid open, revealing a figure standing in the shadows. It was the commander, but this time his expression was different, cold, almost unrecognizable. Behind him stood a towering, armored figure, one that Jordan had never seen before, but that felt strangely familiar. The same sinister energy that had surrounded the entire trial now seemed to radiate from this figure, making the hairs on the back of Jordan's neck stand on end. "This is it, Cadet." The commander's voice echoed through the chamber, his tone final. "Your loyalty has been tested, your strength proven. But now, you will face the ultimate trial. The choice you make here will decide whether you live or die." Jordan felt his pulse quicken. The final showdown had arrived. The armored figure took a step forward, revealing its massive form. It wasn't human. It wasn't even alien. It was something else entirely. An advanced synthetic life form, a creation meant to represent humanity's greatest weapon. It stood over 7 feet tall, its body clad in dark, sleek armor that glimmered with an almost unnatural light. Its eyes were nothing more than glowing slits, voids that seemed to absorb everything around them. The creature was silent, its presence alone enough to send waves of dread through the room. It was a perfect weapon, created to kill without mercy, and Jordan was standing between it and the fate of humanity itself. "You've seen what we are capable of," the commander continued, his voice now edged with something darker. "This is the final test. Defeat our greatest creation and you will prove humanity's worth to us. Fail, and you will join the ranks of those who believed they could challenge us." Jordan gritted his teeth, his grip tightening on the weapon he had kept by his side throughout the trials. This wasn't just a battle for his life. It was a battle for everything he believed in. The synthetic warrior stepped forward again, its massive hands reaching for the weapon at its side. Jordan's instincts screamed at him to move, to run, but he held his ground. He knew this was coming, and now there was no escaping it. The fight was on. With a blinding flash, the creature lunged. It was faster than anything Jordan had ever encountered, its movements like liquid, sleek and precise. The sheer force of the impact sent Jordan tumbling backward, his body slamming into the cold, unforgiving floor. Pain shot through him, but he didn't have time to think. The creature was on him again in an instant, its glowing eyes burning with malice. But Jordan wasn't giving up. With a grunt, he rolled to the side just in time to avoid another devastating strike. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, the adrenaline surging through his veins. The creature was powerful, no doubt about it, but it wasn't invincible. Jordan had faced worse, and he had learned from every battle. Now it was time to use everything he had learned, every ounce of his training, to take this thing down. The creature swung its arm down, but Jordan ducked, narrowly avoiding the blow. In that split second, he spotted an opening. Just beneath the creature's armor, near its joints. It was small, but it was enough. Without hesitation, he grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the floor and plunged it into the weak spot, aiming for the vulnerable area he'd identified. The creature screeched in pain, its massive form staggering back. But it wasn't finished. It swiped at him again, the force of its arm sending shockwaves through the air. Jordan dodged again, moving faster, his body fueled by desperation and resolve. His mind raced as he tried to anticipate the creature's next move. There was no room for error now. The future of humanity depended on him. He needed one final strike. As the synthetic warrior lunged once more, Jordan spun to the side, using the momentum of the creature's attack to his advantage. With all his strength, he drove his weapon into the creature's chest, right where its heart would be if it were human. The creature let out a final guttural scream before collapsing, its massive form crumpling to the ground. Jordan stood over it, panting, sweat dripping down his face. His body ached, but he had done it. He had won. But the victory felt hollow. The commander stepped forward, his cold eyes meeting Jordan's. "You've proven your strength, Cadet. Humanity has passed the test. You may have won, but the war is far from over. The choices you've made will shape the galaxy." Jordan didn't speak. He didn't need to. He had fought for humanity's future, but now he understood something more. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for the soul of humanity itself, and the battle was only just beginning.